I don't care what y'all say, and y'all can miss me with that body positivity mess. Don't nobody want to be fat, okay? Now I know skinny don't automatically equal healthy, but we know for damn sure fat ain't healthy. Do something about it. Drop down in the comments and purchase these fine products to jumpstart your weight loss journey.
Nessa girl, 26-year-old police veteran ex-officer Kim Potter, who's responsible for the shooting death of 20-year-old Daunte Wright, is being charged with second-degree manslaughter. It looks like they finally got something right and got it right early. Want to talk about it? Here you go. Nessa girl, I woke up this morning tired. I went down to the gym. When I left the gym, I had to go do some blood work, and I went to Boston Market to get me something to eat. And I had the intentions of coming home and calling y'all about Huntsville and other little gossip, Jen Shaw, and I'm still gonna call y'all about all of that. I'm sitting at the register checking out, and I get a text from my homegirl, attorney Sue Ann Robinson. She be with Ben Crump, so she's a civil rights attorney. She also does a lot of television legal work. She texted me the article from MSNBC that said ex-officer Kim Potter will be charged with second-degree manslaughter at Daunte Wright case. And then she wrote, "Bye, bitch." And I damn holler. I said, yes, God, got him. And they got him on time. But there is so much for us to talk about and unpack and discuss. And so I am here to do it. Let me start out by saying, I don't know if y'all saw my Instagram last night, but I did a post referencing if the world would be a better place if we didn't have the news. And what prompted me to think in that context was the fact that since Donald Trump has been out of office and the news has not been reporting, all of his foolishness and riling up those Trump supporters, it seems as if, at least on that front, we have gotten back to a sense of normalcy. However, I understand that people's hearts do not change overnight. So all of these racist, bigots, Trump supporters, all these people, they're still out there in the world, but my anxiety level and my stress level seems to be far more less because I'm not having to look at it every day and it's not riling people up. So that's what I meant by my comment about would our lives be better without the news. And granted, I get that we must have the news. News holds government accountable. How would we know what was going on outside in the world? How would we be shedding light on some of these injustices if it was not for the news? But it's just a theoretical question that lent itself to self-care, health-care, mental health. And I closed that thought by saying, these days, because of everything that happened in 2020, I highly curate what content I ingest for my own self-care, and that's what keeps me from watching the news. That's relevant because I didn't know what was going on with Daunte Wright. I kind of stopped, unfollow people who be super, political and stuff on social media as well. But I love The View. And whenever I scroll through social media and I see Whoopi Goldberg's face looking like this, I know it's about to be some shit, okay? So that's when I paid attention. Whoopi set the story up. Sunny Holston responded. Joy responded. Megan responded. And I was on board with all of their responses. And that's when I first figured out what was going on with Daunte Wright. Then secondly, I was scrolling through Instagram and I believe it was D.L. Hughley had reposted Earthquake, who had posted the press conference from the aunt. She was saying, say his name, Daunte Wright. And she was just going on and going on. And I'm laying in my bed. And then all of a sudden, I just burst out into tears because it hurt. Her pain was so easily transferable through the TV screen and through the phone screen or whatever the case may be. And it pained me and saddened me. And then at that point, I kind of had to tune it out because I was just spent. I was tired. Moving on, I had some very interesting dialogue with my friend Katrina last night, and I'm gonna share that dialogue with y'all. So first, let's just deal with some of the facts of the case. Kim Potter, 26-year-old veteran, she also was responsible for training other officers, and she was training an officer with her at the time. From my understanding, and this is per the View, listening to Sunny Holston talk, that Daunte Wright was pulled over because wherever they're from, Missouri, Milwaukee, Michigan, one of the three, it is illegal to have air freshener hanging from your visor. And Sunny Holston pointed out something that was very, interesting. And she was saying that, this law has always been very controversial because officers have used it as a pretext for racial profiling. You know what I'm saying? And in short, you know what I'm saying? You see somebody, you think they doing something, they haven't committed a crime, you bust them for this air freshener hanging out the window, and then bam, that opens you up to be able to get them for weed if they got weed on them, or get them for a gun, or just get them for something that you ordinarily would not have been able to see with the naked eye, or plant something on them, all because you are profiling them and using the air freshener as an excuse. There are laws that all of us break every day of the week. I know I got one real bad. I jaywalk like a motherfucker. I jaywalk in front of police officers. I do it all the time. And an officer has never stopped me for it. My mama used to tell stories about how when they was in high school, they would get tickets for jaywalking, and we would laugh. But I tell that story to illustrate the fact that officers have discretion as to what they're going to bother you for or not bother you for. I find it very perplexing to me that an officer will pull somebody over because of the dangling air freshener, or because of dangling Mardi Gras beads, or whatever the case may be. And Sunny brought up a very valid point. She said that her concern was this officer is training other officers. So basically, what was the context? What is she teaching this other officer about pulling people over, particularly young black men, using this air freshener law or whatever? It's petty. It's stupid. It's one of those laws where, we got so many laws on the books that are just outdated, antiquated, that y'all overlook every day, and this should be one of them. What's baffling to me is, if the air freshener is so damn illegal in this municipality, then why is it sold in that area? You know what I'm saying? Now, my friend Trina brought up something very valid, because she was just talking about, he should have known better about the air freshener. And I said, well, Trina, if me and you went on a road trip and we rode through there or whatever, going cross country, we wouldn't know better. That would not be second nature for us. That's actually kind of counterintuitive, especially something that is so innocent and minuscule. And her rebuttal was, being that y'all are from the state, that the area of George Floyd, being as though this is a law that is specific to this area, that she was pretty confident that everyone from that area knows that you can't have stuff hanging from your window. And whether you learned it in driver's ed, however you learned it, and especially being that they're from where George Floyd is from, that the parents have an obligation to explain to their children and make sure that they don't have those types of things hanging from their window. And I'm inclined to agree. I'm inclined to believe that if y'all are from an area where this is illegal and people do this on and often as a way of busting people, then it's reasonable to assume that for the most part it's general knowledge that you can't have anything hanging from your window. Let me also point out that that's neither here nor there, and I'm not trying to use that as a defense for what the lady did. I'm just thinking out loud here. So there's so many different components to this, right? So then we figure out, she pulls him over, we figure out that he has a warrant. So, in me questioning my friend, and we just calculated on the phone, I was like, I wondered if he knew he had a warrant. And she shared with me he didn't know he had a warrant, that they were able to prove in the computer that the warrant went to the wrong address. All right. So here is where things begin to get sticky and where we're really going to dig in deep and have some conversation. The young man, called his mom or whatever the case may be. Mom was on the phone. Somehow or another, the phone disconnected. He's asked to step outside the car. I don't know when the phone got disconnected. It's non-germane. And for whatever reason, you know what I'm saying, as they're attempting to apprehend him, my understanding is that he tried to flee. He tried to get back in the car, run, flee, leave. Now, I want to stop here because this is where the bigots and the crazy people are going to use the whole, well, he had a warrant and he shouldn't have tried to run excuse, right, to justify her actions. Let me start out by saying I 100% agree that this young man should not have tried to run. I do. There's no way around it. And it's nonsensical, right? It's nonsensical. You've been pulled over. At a minimum, we got your tag, we got your license, we got your name. We know where you live. So running is going to do what? Other than add more charges and trump up your situation. And so the reason why I bring this up and I explain it this way is because knowing that the deck was completely stacked against you and knowing that you were not going to get away with running from the cops, one has to ask, what was going through your mind? And my response is fear and panic. Right? Fear and panic is what led him to a lapse of judgment. Because let's think about it. Negro, we pulled you over, we got your name and information. You finna drive off and leave and think we not gonna find you today, tomorrow, whatever, and you get in even more trouble. I mean, that's just a rational thought process. And because he was not thinking rationally, the only thing that could have led to that was fear and panic. And so my friend Trina goes, well, maybe he feared for his life. And then I go, maybe he feared going to jail. And then I go, whether he feared for his life or feared for going to jail, it doesn't matter. He was in fear and he panicked. I think that his response was a panic response. So then now we have to get to the officer, right? And me and my friend Trina, we're just talking and we're dissecting it. And she was saying, it was a mistake. I watched the video once. I can't watch it again. And the first thing out of my mouth was, well, Trina, the lady, when she shot him, she said, oh shit, I shot him. And she sounded surprised. To my ears, it sounded like a surprise response. So then I posed the question, trying to give her the benefit of the doubt and absorb all the details. Could it be possible that amongst all the panic, chaos, and commotion, she panicked as well and grabbed the wrong thing just in the midst of the commotion? Because I'm trying to wrap my head around this. And then the next thing that came to my mind was Meghan McCain. And you got to sit down and it's some shit when you and Meghan McCain are on the same page. Meghan McCain on The View pointed out several things. She says, me and my husband are gun owners. We own a lot of guns. She said, first and foremost, tasers are much lighter than guns. Their grip is different than a gun. And they're purposely, made bright yellow, bright green, bright orange for them to be clearly distinguishable between that and your gun. She said, secondly, the protocol for owning a gun is that you carry your gun on your dominant side and you put all other devices on your non-dominant side, and that is one of the mechanisms that they put in place to try to assure you that you don't make the type of mistake that this woman is claiming that she made. If your intent was to tase, then you should have gone to your left and not your right. So again, I'm still just exploring all the possibilities. I'm going down this, maybe it was panic mode and she just whatever. And my friend Trina said something very valid. She said, not at 26 years on the force. She said, you know, if that was a rookie, or if it was the officer that she was training, I could go along with that defense. But not after 26 years on the force. Now, here's where things got a little confusing for me, right? Because I do believe in humanity. I do believe that most people are inherently good. And I have not experienced a lot of deep hatred personally. I've never had nobody in my face call me a nigger. I've never had a white person tell me I'm not gonna be shit. You know, it's always been subtle stuff, like sitting in a restaurant and it's 20 minutes before somebody comes over and takes your order, or you know, somebody not letting you in the traffic, or them, you know, somebody putting your money down on the counter. Those are the type of subtle things I've experienced. So as a result of that, and then too, with me growing up in Miami, a white person would have got their ass motherfucking beat fucking around with us because we crazy and we ghetto and ignorant. It's all hell. That's a whole nother video for a whole nother day. Nevertheless, and this is the part where I don't want people to get bent out of shape, but it's just how I think. I could not if she did not make an accident, if she did not shoot him accidentally believing that her gun was her taser, then the only other reasonable response is that she intended to do him grave harm. And the reason why I was willing to explore the maybe it was a mistake in the midst of panic is because I've never come in contact with that level of evil before. And I've never come in contact with that level of hate before. And so because I haven't personally experienced it, it's just very hard for me to think that another human being would consciously make the decision to cause someone grave bodily harm in this context. But that's exactly what happened. Meghan McCain pointed something else out too, that basically she had several benchmarks that she had to meet before that firearm was discharged that should have let her know this was not your taser. One was the weight, one was the grip, and the other that was the most compelling is Meghan explained the Glock, that it has a safety trigger feature where basically you have to pull the trigger and then pull it again in order for the gun to discharge. That right there is very damning and compelling evidence, because at the point in which you did this and then you had to do it again, something in your mind should have went off and said, I've got the wrong instrument. I've got the wrong tool. You know, the other thing that is baffling me was the training that these officers get. So let's just go with, she did intentionally pull her gun. I don't think the circumstance warranted that. Even if he was fleeing. In the grand scheme of life, so fucking what? You got all this information, he's 20 years old. He ain't gonna be that goddamn hard to find. He ain't gonna be that damn hard to apprehend. I just don't think that situation warranted a gun being pulled. And if not, why not shoot at the tires? Why not shoot at the tires? Why not get in your car and run behind them? But to shoot, you know, and to shoot a fatal shot. And, you know, whether she did it intentionally or not, we're not in her brain or her heart. We'll never definitively know. But it was interesting because the news reporter that was reporting on the case described that second-degree manslaughter involves if you knowingly take a risk that can kill or injure someone. So I definitely think as we look at this, that is a reasonable charge or whatever. You knowingly took a risk, especially considering the fact that the situation at hand did not warrant that risk. It didn't warrant that risk. And you took it on. This is the charge. Now, something else that was perplexing to me, and maybe it'll take some of my legal people to understand it, explain it to me. They were saying that the chief of police for that division or whatever also resigned too. Now, Kim Pollard done fucked everything. I'm not understanding, unless the simple answer is simply public relations, why this person now has to lose their job as well. I'm sitting at my desk doing paperwork, going over payroll, doing schedules. Your ass out there in the field, you don't shot and damn killed somebody. Now I got to damn resign. Somebody who knows more about this, please connect the dots for me and give me the correlation. Or is the simple answer just somebody has to take the fall, heads got to roll, and it's a PR move? I just think it's fucked up that somebody came to work today thinking about their retirement, thinking about what they're going to do with their grandkids. Some asshole in the field makes some mistake, and now they're out of a job. That was that. So there was one other thing that she brought up, and here's where our conversation got a little contentious. When we were talking about him fearing for his life versus him fearing for going to jail. My friend Trina asked me, she says, in this racial climate with everything that you have seen with the police and stuff, do you not fear for your life when if you get stopped? And I know my response is going to be slightly controversial, but it's my truth. For me, the answer is no. And I said to her, I don't fear for my life. I brace myself for the police to be an asshole or whatever, because that has been my experience. Not to mention the double consciousness that black people have to have in this country. We have to be black in the black community when we're around black people, and we have to put on our white television phone voice when we are around white people. Also too, going to Florida State University, having to drive through all types of hick towns, going to and fro school where these officers could be racist, and many of them were blatantly racist. You know, I adapted the skill of how to be non-threatening. I play into my femininity, and quite frankly, you know, I adapted and learned how to play up the notion of being a non-threatening black man, right? Like, these are all skill sets that I've honed. And not to say that any of them will save my life, and I'm not that naive to believe that what has happened to these other people can't happen to me, because it can. But just going back to answering her question about do I fear for my life when I get pulled over? I don't. Because number one, I'm a law-abiding citizen, and not to imply that these other people who lost their lives weren't. That's not what I'm saying. Number two, there's never anything in my car intentionally that's going to get me in trouble, drugs, guns, anything like that. Number three, and it's respectability politics, but it's the truth. I don't look like the stereotypical thug. I don't look like the stereotypical hood dude. I don't look like the scary, stereotypical big black guy in the alley. I don't look like the stereotypical ghetto gonna give you an attitude and cuss the police out. That's not what I give. That's not how I show up in the world. So when an officer pulls me over, for the most part, I'm pretty confident that they're not going to be threatened by my presence. But again, I'm not naive to the point where I don't think that it can happen to me, because it can, and it has happened to other people who were clean-cut, law-abiding citizens. I get that. Again, just answering the question, because y'all can't make me feel something I don't feel. I don't fear for my life when I get pulled over. I brace myself for the police officer to be an asshole. And she said to me, she said, well, when is the last time you've been pulled over? I said, I actually got pulled over about 3 months ago. And she said, what happened? I said, the police officer was an asshole. I got pulled over in Sunny Isles in January because I was driving with, unbeknownst to me, an expired tag. Bitch, my tag hadn't, I don't know, I had been driving from August to January with a bad tag. Bitch, $18 is the least of what I'm hurting for, and time I got plenty of it. So knowing that, there is no reason other than my mind going bad or lapse of memory that I did not know my tag needed to be renewed. I would not purposely drive 6 months on a tag that costs $18 to get. That's just not something that I would do. And so when the officer pulled me over, he was a complete asshole. And she said, what did you do? I said, I bit the bullet. I bit the bullet, got the ticket, and went on about my business. I said, because I could have cussed. I could have been like, why you being an asshole to me? Yada, 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 yada. But I've learned, in order for me to make it away with my life, I've got to be non-threatening and de-escalate the situation, because he did come to the car looking for confrontation. That officer talked to me so nasty and so rude. When he pulled me over, he was pulling me over, I turned into a, because we were on like a 1-lane street, 1 lane each way, I turned over into like a church parking lot, or whatever the case may be. The minute he got to my window, he was like, why did you turn into here? And I said, well, sir, because, you know, again, the non-threatening, I was high-pitched voice. I was like, well, sir, you know, I didn't want to block the flow of traffic. He cut me off. I was like, that's not for you to decide. That's for me to decide. And at that point, in the back of my mind, the nigga in me was like, bitch, who the fuck is you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And I wanted to say, why are you talking to me like that? But I knew he got the law on his side. He don't came to my car with all this vibrato. And that the best thing for me to do in the interest of my mental health and my physical safety was to bite the bullet. Was it fair to me? Absolutely not. Should cops practice a bit more customer service? Absolutely. But guess what? I'm here to tell you, I'm here to talk about it. I'm here to talk about it. And again, that's not to imply that any of these people who have gotten hurt or murdered by these police officers deserved it or did anything to make this happen. But it just illustrates how, you know, we have to teach ourselves and our children ways to de-escalate some of these situations. You know, something else that I brought up, and it's going to be a controversial statement, and I'm going to say it anyway. Independent of this woman being dead wrong, and independent of her murdering Daunte Wright, it's sad that despite her wrong, he set in motion a chain of events that cost him his life. And I know some of y'all are gonna be mad with me for saying that, and it just is what it is. While this bitch was dead ass wrong about the way she handled it, she was dead ass wrong. You can't start the story from the middle. And unfortunately, had he not tried to flee, for whatever reason he opted to flee, whether it was fear for his life or panic, had that not happened, there would not have been a set of circumstances that would have led to her pulling a taser or a gun that ultimately cost him his life. And let's be clear here, I'm not blaming him. I'm not blaming him at all. I'm just simply going in a chronological order of the events. And it's just unfortunate that he attempted to flee. You know, I'd be curious to know what was going through his head and his heart, and I'll never know. And him attempting to flee, again, is no excuse to be murdered. I believe that training should have stipulated that in those situations, especially if he's not holding people hostage or robbing a bank or anything of such, you let him go. You let them flee, and you get them another way. That's what I think the training reform should be. Damn sure isn't shoot them. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to leave y'all with this closing comment. I had a conversation with Howie down to the bar one time. We were talking about just various situations. I believe it was the Breonna Taylor, and he tried to bring up how her boyfriend was a criminal and selling drugs, so on and so forth. And I stomped the shit out of his ass when I said criminals don't deserve to get shot either. And he had to pause. Just because somebody commit a crime don't mean they deserve to get shot. And somehow we've adopted this mentality that, oh, you deserved it, you shouldn't have been doing nothing wrong, or you deserved that you did something wrong. But the punishment has to fit the crime. Criminals deserve self-respect. Criminals deserve protection. Criminals deserve, hell, I'm a criminal, I jaywalk. And sometimes I throw blow pop paper out my window. We all do something illegal every day of the week or every other day of the week. You know what I'm saying? Criminals don't deserve to get shot either. In this instance, this young man, you know, exercised a criminal act, but he did not deserve to get shot for it either. Anyway, y'all, this is getting lengthy and I'm getting sleepy. This is all I got. I ain't got no more. And I'll be sure to call y'all hoes later. Bye.